It's Wednesday, August 5th. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blancolirio channel, and we now have the preliminary report from the NTSB regarding the tragic mid-air collision over Lake CoeurD'Alene, Idaho, which occurred on 5 July of this year and first reported on this channel on 6 July. Let's take a look at what the NTSB has to say. And there's a chilling photograph from a witness just prior to the accident that explains the whole story. Now I'll read directly from the report as it's brief. On July 5th, 2020, about 14:22 Pacific Daylight Time, a Cessna 206 stationaire, that's a 6-seat high-wing Cessna single-engine aircraft, November 6373 uniform, and a de Havilland DHC-2 Beaver, that's the charter aircraft, November 2106 Kilo, were destroyed when they were involved in an accident near CoeurD'Alene, Idaho. The pilot and passenger of the Cessna and the pilot and 5 passengers of the de Havilland were fatally injured. The Cessna was operated as Title 14 CFR Part 91 personal flight, and the de Havilland was operated under Title 14 FAR Part 91 air tour flight. So this is something the NTSB will be discussing in the final report. Even though the 5 passengers were paying passengers on a charter flight, because of a loophole in the regulations regarding air tour operators, this flight was able to operate under FAR Part 91, the same regulation that governs the flight of small general aviation aircraft like the mighty Luscombe. Remember Part 91, general aviation, Part 135, charter operations, and Part 121, airline type operations. Each level offers more regulation and more restrictions and ostensibly more layers of safety. The operator of the de Havilland reported that the 20-minute local air tour flight originated from the seaplane base located on the north part of Lake CoeurD'Alene. We'll look at the map here in a second. Friends of the Cessna pilot reported that the flight departed from CoeurD'Alene Airport at an unknown time with the destination of Lewiston, Idaho. The CoeurD'Alene Airport is also located just to the north of Lake CoeurD'Alene. Lake CoeurD'Alene is a long, skinny lake winding from north to south. Lewiston Airport is a flight plan of about due south from CoeurD'Alene. Witnesses located in the vicinity of the accident site reported that they observed the float-equipped de Havilland flying on a northerly heading. That would be the de Havilland heading back to the seaplane base, concluding the sightseeing tour. And the Cessna was on a southerly heading as seen in Figure 1. So the Cessna is heading down to Lewiston. The witnesses reported southbound. The witnesses reported that both airplanes appeared to be about 700 to 800 feet above the water surface, and that the Cessna may have been slightly lower than the de Havilland, and when they collided over the lake. Following the collision, witnesses observed a fireball coming from one of the airplanes as both descended into the water. There was no radar or automatic dependent surveillance broadcast (ADSB) equipment or data for either airplane. Where do I start with this? The FAA has reported that there have been 42 mid-air collisions. This is the 4th one I've been reporting on in just the last over the last year. The FAA reports 42 mid-airs from January, in the United States alone, from January of 09 to December of 13. 42 mid-airs over a 5-year span equates to a little over 8 mid-airs per year in the United States. We have collision avoidance technology even built into our cars. ADSB technology is now required in certain airspace, basically in controlled airspace for all aircraft. However, this accident occurred in uncontrolled airspace in what I would call congested uncontrolled airspace in the Lake CoeurD'Alene area. The Lake CoeurD'Alene area is a beautiful part of northern Idaho that gets very busy during the summertime with tour operators, general aviation, and Forest Service flying aircraft. This is where these accidents are occurring, in congested uncontrolled airspace, where ADS-B is not required, and neither of these aircraft had this life-saving technology on board. ADS-B can be installed in an aircraft nowadays for about $2,000. We discussed the advantages of TCAS, traffic collision avoidance systems, as we use in the airline industry, and ADS-B provides traffic collision avoidance technology as well. It just doesn't give you the specific resolution advisory advice that a TCAS system would. However, it provides enough information that, in my opinion, could have easily prevented this tragedy. One of the basic regulations that helps mitigate mid-air collisions in VFR flight under Part 91, FAR Part 91, is VFR hemispheric even odd altitude separation. When you're flying above 3,000 feet above the surface but below 18,000 feet, you are to pick up an appropriate VFR hemispheric cruising altitude. Anywhere from 0 degrees to 180 degrees or 179 degrees, you are to pick up, you are heading eastbound. East is least, even is better than odd. If you're heading to the east, you need to pick an odd altitude plus 500 feet. So if you're heading off to the east, you need to pick a cruising altitude of 35, 55, 7,500 feet. If you're heading west, you got to pick an even altitude plus 500, 45, 65, 8,500 feet. And that way, that gives everybody 1,000 feet separation while cruising. Of course, people still need to descend and or climb up to these altitudes as they approach their destinations. Both of these aircraft were operating well below 3,000 feet. They were at 700 or 800 feet above the ground. They were too low to apply this rule. A mid-air collision is one of the most terrifying things to a pilot, and as a human, we are easy to detect movement. We can see movement ahead of us, but if an object is stationary, it is very hard to detect. And in this case, this appears to be a case where the two aircraft were headed right towards each other, so the offending aircraft was not moving across the windscreen. It was just a dot heading steadily closer to the windscreen. And if the Cessna 206 was slightly below the Beaver, remember from the previous report on the Soldotna midair, the Beaver aircraft has that large 985 cubic inch, 450 horsepower Pratt & Whitney engine mounted on the front of the airplane, cowled up, which blocks a lot of the forward and downward visibility of the Beaver aircraft. A lot of you who don't fly suggest, what about cameras? Cameras are not going to help you detect a object that's not moving, a dot that's just simply getting larger to you. The camera would not help you pick that up until it's probably much too late. You need some sort of technology to alert you to the fact that somebody is out there and heading directly towards you at your altitude. Here's a couple of ADS-B display examples. And a TCAS display example. In order for traditional TCAS traffic collision avoidance systems to work, both aircraft need to have operational transponders, preferably with the altitude encoding reporting on. ADS-B uses GPS data from each aircraft to help determine the relative position of each aircraft to one another. So there's no reason that some sort of a hybrid mix, or at least as a minimum, a use of ADS-B data should not be required, in my opinion, or should be required, in my opinion, by Part by folks that are taking people's money for an airplane ride. Whether you're operating in the Part 91 loophole or under Part 135, you should at least, at a minimum, have some form of ADS-B technology on board that aircraft. Again, it's only going to work if the offending aircraft also has ADS-B out. As we get more information, we'll let you know. We've also got the factual report on the tragic Addison, Texas King Air engine failure on takeoff. An astonishing study. I'll get into that here in the next day or so. I got to get a shave and a haircut. We'll see you here. And thanks for your support over on Patreon, as most of this content is demonetized by YouTube as unsuitable for all advertisers.